All right. This is Clint from the Doorway too, hanging out with the guys from Pulchra Morte. Is that how you say it? Or was it close enough?
Yeah, close enough. Pulchra
Uh,
Morte, you got it.
all right. There we go. It's Clayton and Jarrett. So I appreciate you guys doing this, for reconvening with me on a more apropos time because I had some issues on the night we were supposed to do this. Um, but thank you so much for doing this. Really, really do appreciate it. I guess what I'm going to do is kind of start from the beginning. And so I've kind of gone backwards. Listen to the new record first and your first record second.
Hmm.
So I kind of want to go a little bit over Davinia a bit and say, kind of talk about that, and we'll go into the Ex Rosum record, which is the new record. So the first one kind of has much more of a death metal vibe to me, where it has doomy elements, but it kind of has more of a death metal feel. So is it just because of some different lineup members, or were you guys in a different place at that time? Kind of talk to me a little bit about that. So.
Yeah, Jeff really is sort of the first guy to bring riffs to the table. He writes the majority of kind of the construct of what will become our songs, and we've never really put any restrictions on him. It needs to be this or that. We just kind of say, write what you're feeling at the moment, and he spits out songs. And it was interesting when we started getting demos from him for this record and what would become this record. We could tell like it was feeling, you could tell it was us, as far as comparing it to the first album. But to me, it sounded more like, we were kind of finding our own voice, versus, I think on the first album, we really had a clear kind of point we wanted to make. And we wore our influences on our sleeve, willingly and happily. And I think we made that point. So it was refreshing to kind of hear something a little bit different, a little more out there, a little more kind of, I don't even really know how you describe it. But, it became what you hear on Ex Rosa Ceremonia, and we're very pleased with it.
I think I think obviously with, when you change members and stuff, new people are going to bring different things to the table. Certainly how it was recorded was different. Clay and I did the drums for the new record at Earth Analog in Tolono, whereas on the first one, the guys had just, I basically got the demos for the first record already done. Clayton called me and asked me if I could do bass on it, if I had a bass, and I said, sure, I'll demo the bass or whatever. And once I heard it, I was like, wow, I really like this material. I really like this material. Even though it looked at the past in a way, it felt fresh to me. I think I think that I've realized as I've gone through my life and my career that I'm a real sucker for songs.
Okay.
So I could never give you a blanket statement that, I love, punk or hardcore from this area or this time or whatever. It's not true. That's always selective. It's always about songs for me. And I really was impressed by the songwriting. So I called Clay back and I said, hey, I'd like to do this for real. And so the guys basically came down here and we knocked that album out in, a week.
Yeah.
Like a week. This one was spread out for various reasons. A lot of it because of my schedule touring as a front of house engineer. And so I feel like there was a lot more time probably for it to evolve in the recording process, maybe than the first one. I think that probably plays a big part.
Yeah. I mean, we were playing with kind of arrangements and tempos even as we were recording it, so it was good to kind of let it grow more organically that way, I think.
Yeah. Nice. I mean, adding textures, leads, the extra sounds that are on the album, like on the ends of songs and things like this. All of that was being created kind of as we went, and I think probably because of the world situation or whatever, things slowed down for me in a way where I was able to kind of take time and think about what I wanted it to look like as a whole picture. Even though I always said that you never really see the whole picture until you're done, which is a strange way to do things, but that's how we did it.
Cool. Yeah. So I was going to say that the first record kind of has more of a kind of bolt thrower-ish, dismember kind of death metal vibe with elements of I almost want to say early Amorphous. Like you can start hearing the early Doom elements in the first record, where with the new one, there's very much that kind of gothic, romantic death doom element with death metal as kind of the palette. And I kind of want to throw a couple bands at you because it's kind of what I hear, and I might be crazy. That's totally fine. But yeah,
Yeah, sure.
but it's yeah. So like Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, early November's Doom, like things like that are really what I kind of hear in the new record. I really love the mix of kind of like I know it's probably weird taglines, but kind of like that early Peaceville, like avant-garde Italy records kind of vibe where it's it's death doom, but it's got that kind of gothic romanticism on it as well too. Is that kind of what you were going for on the new record? That's kind of the next question I had. So,
Well, I mean, really, that you just kind of nailed the whole impetus for the band in general. Was that
okay,
original Peaceville, early Peaceville sound. So the first, like Gothic from Paradise Lost, especially. I mean, we covered The Painless. It was one of the tracks that we did in the recessions for the first album. We put that out on a 7-inch, very, very happily. But, the kind of the early My Dying Bride, early Paradise Lost kind of feel was something that, just we as fans felt there wasn't really enough of out there. And it seemed like there was kind of a gaping hole where, everybody went directly from that to let's play as fast as we possibly can. Right. So it just felt like that whole era of music kind of got leapt over, and we wanted to kind of bring that back a little bit. So that was really why we even started talking about starting the band. But, again, as far as something that we were trying to do consciously on this record, there really wasn't anything like that. I think you're just hearing sort of, what we all grew up on. And, we're varying ages of dudes in this group. So there's all kinds of influences that come into play when we start sitting down to really record this stuff, which, to me is part of the fun. Like, well, let's hear what you got, man. Let's hear it.
Yeah, there's not a lot of the bands that you mentioned, I definitely like and have listened to, throughout my life. I definitely don't think. I think it would be a disservice to us to go into a record with some preconceived notion, because I feel like the songs are going to become what they're going to become. And if we tried to exist within a boundary, I don't know that the record could get where it needed to go. And we're all really interested in like watching where we go, funny enough. And there's not a lot of consideration to how it'll be perceived. It mostly is just kind of like, are we creating something that we want to listen to?
Right.
And I'm happy that it gets compared to or referenced against bands that I revere.
nice.
Yeah. And,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say again, we really strive to just help the song become the best possible version of itself it can be. And wherever that takes us is where we end up. Like, we don't really, hear a few riffs and go, okay, well, we got to make, this sort of death metal version of this, or this,
Sure.
whatever feeling version of this. We just want to make that particular song and collection of, phrases the best possible way it can be. And that it, says something and means something and is powerful.
Awesome. So I kind of want to talk about two of my favorite tracks on the new record, and I kind of want to go into a little bit of detail because they're the reason why I wanted to interview you, because they kind of touched me in a very awesome kind of way. Not to make it sound creepy in any way, shape, or form, but I did it anyway. So there you go. But the first one I want to talk about is Knife of the Will. Like that song is just like, it's the first song that like really made me realize that I missed that old 90s death doom kind of like I realized there's not a lot of bands, like you said, like that anymore. And it's
Right.
because of those like harmonic vocals and guitar tones. They almost give me like, I want to call them doom chills. Like it's just like, it's so heavy and powerful, but yet so clean and just amazing. Like I want to kind of ask, like, did you just know when you were in the studio doing that track that it was going to be something special? Because it's kind of a standout track on the record for me. I don't know about others. So
It's funny. We got, when we started talking to Adam and we started kind of going back and forth with what he was going to bring to the table. We got a couple tracks that were really kind of rough demos, and we're like, absolutely, this is going to work. It's going to be great. But a lot of it, we didn't really hear what he had in his head until we got to the studio. So we're sitting, I just remember we're all sitting in the control room, and Adam just goes, hey, let's try this song, and goes in there and just belts out what you hear. And we're just like, holy shit, that's it. That's exactly what that song needed. So, all those kind of the phrasing and the melody lines and the vocals, that's all something that's completely, something that Adam brought to the table. So again, it's one of those things where I didn't really know what the song was going to be and where it was going to go until he brought that into it. And I'm like, absolutely, that's exactly what that song needed.
I think musically, to Jeff's credit, it's just such a pounder that I appreciate so much about our other guitarists, that Jeff can come up with riffs that are 4 chords that fill the space. Like the verse riff of that song is 4 chords, and it's tremendous to me because I'm in the band and I contribute or whatever, but when you play in a band with other people, if you're smart, you get to enjoy what they bring, and you get to be impressed by what is their viewpoint of like how to translate music or art or emotion or whatever it is. And that song is just a pounder. And like at the beginning of it, I added a little thing with like a mellotron pedal to give it that weird choir sound, but it's actually a guitar. And the melody hook underneath those choruses, when I heard him play it, I was like, that's just an earworm for years. That little tiny, like, melody thing. And I just was like, wow, yeah, there you go. That's what we got. And then, like Clay said, Adam came in and added to it and, did what he was going to do. And by the time we were done, you've kind of compiled all these elements together and you go, wow, shit, that's cool. All right.
Right.
Nice. Awesome. So the next, there's only gonna be 2, so this is the other one, is the Archer and the Noose. And the reason why I want to talk about this one is because it mixes, in my mind, the 2 elements of doom that I love the most. Okay, so it's kind of that Nola sludgy kind of vibe mixed with that really melancholy, romantic, gothic death kind of doom elements. And I kind of wanted to hear a little bit about how that song came about as well too, because those are the 2 ones that, like, when I heard the record, I realized this was a record for me. Like, you specifically for me, but I'm telling you, you made it for me. Like, this is the kind of record I jump for. So if you talk a little bit about that song, I appreciate it.
Jarrett, go ahead. You know what you want to tell them.
I heard that in the demo stages, and kind of our sort of path for working is that we'll get demos and ideas of songs, and it'll kind of get bounced back and forth between the 3 of us: arrangements, tempos, where things are going to go, melodies, things like that. And when I heard that opening riff, I was like, wow, like that's something. So it started off already kind of feeling like, yeah, this is a good one. I'm really happy we have this. But by the time, all was said and done and it was constructed, it was arranged, we went in, we recorded it, we did this, we got Heather, who's our longtime friend, who's sang with us on both albums and, probably always will. She's been a good friend to us for a long time. She's really talented. By the time all the elements were put together on that song, like I was a little bit hesitant, funny enough, like, when you're mixing an album, you like pick tracks that you can kind of get nailed. And there are certain ones you're like, well, that's going to be huge. I'm going to do that tomorrow, When I finally put it together, and that means Heather Niera plays cello on the intro. When I finally heard the whole song, it was a really moving thing for me. Like when I finally brought the faders up and heard all of the elements come together, it was just like, whoa, and then I can't really describe it any other way than that, and it, but between, you know, doing the melody at the beginning that she's singing, and then when she doubles Adam in the middle, if that doesn't reach into your chest and squeeze, like, I don't know what will.
Right.
Yeah, you know, and that's another part where, like, Heather came in with that idea, not at all having heard anything that Adam was doing, and they both had the exact same melody line in their head, so it was just something that was, you know, supposed to happen. But that song, that's one that when I was going through the demo stage, you know, trying to put together the drums and everything and make sense of it, that's one where I heard it and I'm like, this is just so much different than anything we did on the first album. Like, I just have no idea if anybody that liked the first album is going to care about this one at all. Like, but I don't care because I love what you're doing here, you know? So I think it's great. And from a drumming perspective, there's parts in that song where I just heard Voivod. So I just completely channeled Away in there and tried to pull off some of my best Away chops there towards the end.
Oh, you can definitely hear that. I totally get where you're going with that. So that's cool. So I kind of want to. This is praise. This is not an attack. So I don't want you to take it in any other way than this. So if I looked at a liner note and said featuring members of Eulogy, Skeleton Witch, and Wolfhammer, I would never get this band. Okay, in any way, shape, or form. You like, and that's probably the greatest homage in the world because I've loved all three of the other bands, and for you know, for thrashy elements, for the more black metal elements, for the pure death metal beauty of certain parts of, like, you know, of Eulogy and stuff like that. But where the hell did you guys come together and say, okay, it's gonna be a doom band? Like, I just don't see these five guys or four guys or whoever, you know, whatever's working in it right now doing this element. So I kind of want to know, like, did you walk into this and say, all right, here's the songs we have on this record, especially, you know, with Adam and everything? Did you say, like, okay, this is the direction we're definitely heading, or was it just kind of really organic and just happened like this? You kind of talked to me a little bit about it earlier on,
Yeah.
but I got a little more deep.
Look, man, me and Jason, you know, I played in Harkonnen with Jason, our original singer, for, you know, 8 or 9 years. And, you know, that was sort of a more black thrash type of band. And I left that band. I think our last show was, you know, around this time in 2011. And kind of just put my drums away. Like, I'd had it. Like, we put out, you know, the third album that I was on, and I thought it was great. I thought it was a fantastic album. Jarrett mixed it. You know, I thought it just sounded great. It was great songs, and, you know, nobody was really paying attention to it. It was on Battle God out of Australia. He had all kinds of advertising and magazines, and it just didn't do well. You know, and that was kind of the third album there, and it just felt like I've been here and I've done this before. You know, it was the same story in Eulogy, where there was, you know, we kind of felt like we were doing some pretty great things, you know, ourselves. Like, we really enjoyed what we were doing, but nobody was really paying attention, and we just couldn't really kind of break through. So it was the same thing for me after Eulogy, where I just kind of stepped away from music for a while. Like, I took a break from drums. They weren't even set up, didn't play them for years. And then, you know, I started talking to Jason about kind of what's something that we haven't done. You know, I felt like I've kind of been there, done that. I played in, you know, Florida, kind of death metal capital of the world metal, you know, in Eulogy. I felt like we kind of, you know, played a part there. You know, I've kind of done some more black metal-y, thrashy type of music with Harkonnen. And, you know, the one thing I just like to challenge myself. So I just wanted to see if I could play it, first of all. And secondly, I didn't hear anything like it out there. So when I started hearing what Jeff was writing, it was just music to my ears, and I felt it, you know, in my soul. And I'm like, it made me want to, you know, get behind the kit and start playing again. That, and really having the blessing of being able to see Fister live about 1,000 times really kind of made me see what was happening and what could be possible. So I kind of put those two things together and said, yeah, let's fucking do this, man. And you know, once we started that giant wheel of Pulchra Morte rolling, it's got its own momentum. This band moves at its own pace and is going to be moving forward regardless of what's happening in the music, you know, world around us. We're going to continue in this path that we've laid, and wherever that leads us is where we're going. You know, I don't have any, you know, we need to do something that sounds more like X or Y. You know, it just that's if you start doing that, you already need to like step away and go do something else. Like the band just needs to continue what you're doing and kind of take your own voice, you know, as far as it makes sense to take it in that realm of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and then I just will add to that. So in the beginning too, there was never a this is going to be a thing. Like there's a resurgence of this. That wasn't there. As a matter of fact, I wasn't seeing that touring, and I tour a lot. As a matter of fact, kind of what I saw happening, which is happening, is that more like power metal seems to be gaining momentum. You know, we'd kind of walk through black metal. We'd seen, you know, Beer and Pizza thrash have its day. You know, we'd seen black and thrash have its day. And what I kind of saw coming was power metal. And I like that stuff, but it's not really what I want to play. And so it's just funny that where this was concerned, it really had nothing to do with like, is this going to work on a underground commercial scale? It's just, oh, like I'm going to jam with Clay. There's some really, really good music here. Now, fast forwarding to the second thing you said, so I've known Adam for years. I mean, Wolfhammer, I, you know, pulled some strings and I asked that they be put on a tour. I was tour managing with 1349 and a few other bands years ago because I like the band a lot. I really like what they do. I became really impressed with Adam and what he does on that tour. We stayed friends over the years. They got in a situation they needed someone to step in and play some live shows. I went in and I did that. And so when it had to be a different vocalist, I kind of feel like I knew where to go. Like okay. I already, you know, I knew what the guy was capable of. And Adam, you know, I'm not going to speak for him, but I will say that we share a thing where our taste in music is very vast. Like all of us right. do. Whether it's like death rock from, you know, Sisters of Mercy or Joy Division to movie soundtracks to this, that, or the other. And I kind of knew that he would stay true to who he is, but he would bring what was necessary to the table as far as we're concerned. But there would also be some things that I hadn't expected, and he did that, you know. And that's kind of the thing. And I think that with all our respective bands over the years, you know, we've all done a lot of different things, but that's always maintained true. Especially with Clayton and I, is that we've always been into all kinds of music, regardless of what our bands were doing. None of our bands ever sat back and said, let's play like that record we just heard. Because if I did that, Eulogy would have sounded like The Accused. And it would have sounded like The Accused's third album all day, every day. But that's not really what we do. So it's just dumb luck that it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just about pushing yourself to me anyway, you know, and that's a conversation I had. I think the first conversation I had with Adam was like, look, I know we've all kind of been in all these different bands, but that's not, you know, 100% of who we all are. We all share very common, like Jarrett said, you know, interests in music kind of going back, you know, and I said, look, this is just a place where we can all kind of do things that we've never done before. Push yourself, bring weird ideas, you know, let's just see where it goes.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Great. That's really good to hear. So, because like I said, the originality is there, and I felt that it was kind of play by the seat of your pants, just let it happen what happens, and it came out really strong. So thanks, moving man. Into a yeah, oh, absolutely. Moving into a different direction. So I had an interview with Emmy Ensis, who's also on Transcending last week.
Oh, yeah.
And they had some
good
really
record, by the way. Go buy it.
Well, yeah, it is. It's awesome. But they had some really kind things to say about your band as well, too. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about Transcending Records, because it's one of the more interesting record labels where I wouldn't say there's a definitive sound for the label. they kind of release what they like, and it's a really nice kind of like, it's refreshing. I happen to make like industrial noise music and doom music myself, and I signed to Aesthetic Death in the UK, which is another label I feel is very much the same way. They do what they like. They don't follow trends. So when you kind of started working with Transcending, was this done because you knew you were going to have the freedom and the availability to do what you needed, or was it just that you loved what they do? Like, how did you hook up with them?
To be honest, to put it really simply, I saw that he reissued The Gathering, and it immediately piqued my curiosity, because I said, if anyone's got the sense to do that, then I want to know who this guy is. And we started talking with him, and we just found that we saw it the same. And the label's really great. They're not, out to take the lion's share of anything from anyone. It's a very mutually beneficial situation. Or in a way, it reminds me of Factory a little bit. And I like the guy, and he's very realistic about what needs to be done, what works. Like, if something doesn't work, he's not going to do it. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter whether it's what's expected. If it doesn't work, he's not going to do it. And I have a respect for that. And I appreciate that he just is putting out things that he likes, and it isn't trying to fall into any kind of barrier. I think there's enough of that going on, and I knew that. I mean, what record label could Pulchra Morte have really been a part of?
Right.
It's not fast. It's not technical. It's not stoner rock. I mean, so it would have taken an open-minded individual, and that's what Mike is.
Yeah, Mike's a dude that really is going to swing for the fences with what he does, regardless of what the fuck's happening around the music industry, and that's really something that we definitely kind of agree on there. And I think, more power to him. It's not always going to work, but when it does, everybody's happy, right? So that's really, plus, it's a guy that is sort of local to us, like we could drive to if we had to. And he answers texts when we text, and right. Just it's really about communication and just kind of being on the same page, right? So we appreciate that he had the faith in Pulchra to kind of jump on board and try and build something with us.
Nice. Yeah, and the communication thing's really important. Like, if you're trying to communicate with someone who's about to sign a legal situation with your band, and they're not answering you before it's signed, the fuck do you think's going to happen when you're legally obligated?
Right.
And communication is a big thing, and our label is very responsive and communicative and interested in hearing ideas and stuff, and they do what they do, and and it gives us the freedom. We didn't want to sell our souls to the label. I mean, that's been tried. It doesn't work. So we have a good situation.
Cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this. We're in a pretty, look, I'm gonna be honest, we're in a pretty fucked up time right now where like, where shows really aren't a possibility. And if they are, there's like minimal number of people, and it really just depends on who you are, where you are. Like here in Arizona, there's literally nothing going on because the spike in cases have been so bad in the last couple of weeks. We're about to do a full shutdown here again. And I kind of wanted to ask, is the band thinking about doing any kind of live performances? Do you want to be able to go out and do some shows, or is it going to be more of a focus of working on another record before you do that, because it's going to be a year before legitimately anything is going to be able to be done?
All of the above.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think yes to all of that. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we went and spent several days at Earth Analog, all of us, kind of a rehearsal, writing, recording type of retreat. I think you're going to be seeing and hearing some fruits of that here relatively soon. But, as far as full shows, again, as soon as it's a possibility, we're going to be out there doing it. I mean, that's what we want to do, is try to, bring this to as many people as possible, because really, you can listen to an album, but I think you really kind of don't necessarily get it until you're standing there in front of people doing it.
And as far as the other ways that people are bringing music to people, I would like very much to not necessarily do the live stream thing, but to go somewhere and just film us playing and make it available, you know, to people. And if that's the only way we can support this album in the live realm, I want to be true to it and walk in and play it for real. Like, you know, no cuts, like play it just like everybody else does. But I think I'd like to make it available forever. I always loved concert movies. You know, Exit Stage Left is one of my favorites ever. The Entombed playing Clandestine live in 2016. Like, I watch it monthly. It still blows my mind. So I'd like to do something like that. And we'll see if it's possible. But, you know, the world's a weird place right now. So possibilities tend to vary.
Yeah, I mean, look, the real reality of this is we're thousands of miles apart. I mean, we don't just live in the same town and get to jam every day. It's a lot of coordination and you know, there's some financial considerations just to even get together, let alone try and actually, you know, film something useful. So we're definitely working on it. I'll give you that.
I'm going to insert into that this is a real band. It's not a fucking project.
Right.
And a lot of bands I work with live across the country from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And just because we don't live in the same city, it's a goddamn real band.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Goat Horror earlier, right? Same situation.
No, yeah. So let's be honest. You can hear it when it's a band versus a project, and just the way the record emotes itself, you can tell it's guys that get together and really try and put music together. So take that for what it is too. Yes, this is a real fucking band.
Yeah, it's funny. We saw something the other day where somebody was talking about, man, I don't know how they're going to pull off Prince Among Shadows live. Well, I'll tell you what, just a couple weeks ago, we played through it a whole bunch of times, and that was fucking awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of thought. We like walked in and counted off and played it.
Cool.
You know, I mean, it's like the arrangement stuff might look complex, but believe me when I tell you that we know how we're going to do it.
Yeah, we've done this once or twice.
I wouldn't allow us to put something on the record that I didn't know how we were going to reproduce.
Nice. Well, that's good. And on top of that, so live versus the studio, is there going to be a drastic difference, or do you want it to sound very much like the album live? Is there something like, you know, is there an element that you want to bring into the live show that wasn't on the record?
So we've kind of gone back and forth on this a little bit. So we have played to click, so we can have the tracks with the cello, like on Fire and Storm, for example, when we toured last year. We did play to that so that the cello could be kind of the backing track and it could be heard over the speakers while we played everything else. And, you know, to me personally, I'd rather just, you know, try and pull it off differently live than just reproduce the record. Like playing to that, it felt very kind of sterile to me. I like personally just get on stage, just jam it out, you know, transpose that to a guitar, you know, whatever we got to do to make it just a little different so we can actually play it all and pull it all off live and be in the moment. You know, maybe it's a little faster this night, maybe it's a little slower, you know, whatever it is, be in that moment and play it live for real. That's more attractive to me. So, you know, that means unless we're bringing Heather on tour with us to sing 2 songs, you're probably not going to hear Heather on the record. You're probably not going to hear cellos. But as Jarrett said, we wouldn't put something on the record that we didn't know how we were going to reproduce live, at least, you know, somewhat.
Yeah, and also, too, you know, I mean, to be honest about the touring conditions that we all work in, at this level, monitoring's not always super great, and that's a thing, and it's fine. But, you know, people that are playing more intonated acoustic parts, they really have to be able to hear, so that brings a production aspect to things with in-ears and this, that, and the other. I feel like if we were to shoot a concert movie, I would make it work where they were with us.
Sure.
But, and you know, I mean, if we happen to be in the town where they're at and they want to roll out, I mean, that's great. But,
yeah, fuck yeah.
Nice.
Come on, let's go.
Yeah,
but, you know, and that goes for anybody that happened to sing with us on the album too. Oh, you're in the crowd, get up here. What do you do? Get up here. You know, so it's what we did on the album is important. The songs are the songs, and the idea of us plowing through them at you, which is what happens, is that's the main concern.
Gotcha. Cool. No, that's great to know. I'm not going to keep you guys much longer. I got just a couple more for you, and I really do appreciate the time again.
Sure.
So the last question that I normally ask all the bands, and then I'm gonna give you kind of the floor, but is I ask every single band, I kind of get very different responses, whether it's one person, two people, or the full band. So if you could have any artist cover and interpret one of your songs, who would you want it to be and why? Don't give me that look. You can do this.
I mean, if we're not talking about the realm of reality,
I don't care. It's like if there's an artist that you want to hear interpret one of your songs or a couple of your songs, who would it be and why?
yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so this is hilarious, but I think it would be interesting as a full circle to see Paradise Lost do one of our songs since we did one of theirs.
Nice.
And that's a funny thing because I actually was on tour with them around that time when that came out. I was working for Solstafir, and I was touring with Paradise Lost, and and they heard it. At least a couple of them. They two guitarists, Gregor and Aaron, I think, they heard it and they said they liked it. So I guess we did okay. So I guess I'd like to hear them do it. That'd be something of ours. That'd be cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think let's just go bonkers here, right? Let's see Krista Bell and David Lynch do an arrangement of The Archer and the Noose.
Wow.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
That could be very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, the odds of that happening are fucking zero, but that would be really cool.
Hey, but maybe they'll see this now and it'll happen. So you know what? Stranger things have happened in this world. That's all I can say. If you told me 6 months ago I was going to be video interviewing bands because I can't go to live shows anymore, I tell you, you're full of shit too. But you know what? It's just the way of the world right now.
This is happening.
Yeah, things just happen. So again, thank you for your time very much. I'm going to leave the floor to you right now for the next couple minutes. Talk about the new record. Talk about whatever you want. The floor is open. It's your guys' time.
Hey, thanks for having us, Clint. It's been great talking to you. I'd just say all we ask of anyone is just click play. Just listen to it. Maybe it's not your thing. That's cool. You listen to it. You tried it out. Just click the button. It's on every major streaming platform, all our records. You can buy physical vinyl CDs at Transcending Records. There's an EU store for European orders. We've got our first record and our 7-inch. We've still got a few copies of that available in 3 different variants with the Paradise Lost cover at pulchramorte.bandcamp.com. And we got a whole shitload of shirts, patches, all kinds of cool shit there too. So just check it out if you like it. Yeah.
And, again, the same sentiment. I appreciate you doing the interview with us and talking to us and really to everybody that showed an interest. The records and stuff, we care a lot about what that product is. So, my hope is that if you buy the record, you hold it the way I did when I was a young dude, when I would get an album and I would just really get into the cover and get into the art and get into the layout and the way things are done. And we actually really care about the product. We just want to make something cool and like worth owning that you want to collect. And so, I just want you to know that you're not buying a cardboard slip cover for a piece of vinyl.
Yeah.
We do our best to make it as cool as it can be. And like Clay says, it's a weird world out there. Click the button. Give it a listen. It's not your thing. That's okay. But give it a listen.
And really, we do this ourselves. I mean, we care about this merch. We do it ourselves. Jarrett prints our shirts. He's got a professional screen printing set up at home. Nice. We've got some pretty unique offerings on this new record. We're doing a vinyl version with a wraparound screen printed poster that's sealed with a wax stamp that has our sigil on it. Comes with a slip mat, patches. So we're really trying to put together some cool shit. So check it out.
Awesome. Again, I will make sure that the links to your Bandcamp and your stuff is all in the actual video underneath as well too. Again, this has been Clint from the Doorway too, Clayton and Jarrett. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, buddy. Peace out.